Okay, for my second video on why skateboarding doesn't belong in the Olympics, how do you judge skateboarding? Okay, we all learn how to skateboard in different ways. I know people that can do switch flips, but they can't do kick flips. They ride ramps in one stance and they skate street in another stance. And it's because we all learn how to skateboard in different ways. We don't have coaches to teach us the proper way to skateboard, because there is no proper way to skateboard. The only proper way to skateboard is to express yourself however the hell you want to do it. So how is somebody gonna judge the difficulty of a trick when for some people it's easier to do some tricks than others? I know people that can do tray flips that can't kick flip. I can't half cab, but I can half cab flip, okay? And for me, it's easier to do a half cab flip than a half cab. But if you're watching it, you would think that a half cab flip is more difficult. It's relevant to the person. And how can you judge that? You don't know what's easier for the individual. You don't know how difficult it actually is for them to land a trick. So how can you judge that? It's not possible. The same goes for like figure skating or gymnastics. You don't know the difficulty of those tricks. And while they've been competitive sports for a long time, skateboarding hasn't. And it probably doesn't need to be, because look at what it's done to those sports. It takes away from the creativity of them, because some judge says, okay, a tray flip is harder than a kick flip, or a heel flip is easier or harder than a kick flip. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's dependent on the individual, okay? Some people can rotate easier in one direction than the other. Most people, actually. You have a strong side and a weak side. You know, some people skate and can do certain tricks easier switch than regular, or fakie, or nollie, or whatever. You can't judge the difficulty of a trick just based on looking at it from an outsider's perspective. That's not how it works. So if we allow skateboarding into the Olympics, what's going to happen is that people are going to find these tricks that are supposedly more difficult. They're going to master them. They're going to forget the basics because they're not worth as many points. And then everybody's doing the same tricks, and it just becomes who lands the trick better. And that's not necessarily a clear indicator either. Sometimes people have different styles with their tricks. You look at Neen's heel flips, for instance. They stick out in everybody's mind because they're so different, okay? But if somebody else does a heel flip that's bigger or higher but with less style, it's going to be judged differently. And how do you do that? It's not possible. You can't have an accurate representation. It's not something like, okay, if skateboarding does belong in the Olympics, it belongs in like a race format, like downhill skateboarding. You can judge that. It's a timed event. You can't judge style. You can't judge difficulty. You can't. It's just not possible.